In this tutorial, I wanted to show you how quickly and easily you can get a new Ruby on Rails application up and running with Nanobox. Now, for the sake of time, I've already created an empty project directory and added a box file into the directory at the root. And so the box file is the configuration file that Nanobox uses when building the environment. So in here I need to specify anything I want my environment to have, and then when I run the environment, Nanobox will provision it using Docker and install these things into containers and build my environment for me. So I've specified that I want Ruby as the engine, and I've added Node.js as an extra package because Ruby or Rails needs JavaScript runtime. So I've actually already done the initial Nanobox run. So I'll just Nanobox run again to drop into a container or into a console. And the reason I did the initial one already was because it just takes a little bit of extra time as Nanobox is installing everything, and I didn't want to include all that into the video. But you can see now that I'm in a container, and there's not a whole lot going on in here. I do have Ruby installed, and I have Node installed, but I don't have Rails installed, which is fine. And I also wanted to show something that on my local machine here, I have Ruby and Node installed as well. You'll notice that they're different versions, and I also don't have Rails installed out here. So what I'm going to do from inside of my container here now is I am going to gem install Rails, because let's say I don't want to install Rails on my local machine. I just want to keep everything pertinent to this project isolated in this development environment. So I'm going to install Rails from inside the machine here so that it stays isolated and I don't have to worry about Rails or any of these gems or anything I'm installing conflicting with any other projects. Okay, just for the sake of time, I went ahead and skipped the Rails installation process, but you can see now that I do have Rails installed. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a Rails new dot. And Rails now is just going to create a new project for me here in this directory. And the cool thing is, as you can see, because my project is mounted, now I'm getting an entire Rails application installed. And if you'll notice, I still don't even have Rails available on my local machine. So all of this is happening inside of an isolated container, which I think is really cool. So now Rails is going to bundle install for me. Now while this is happening, there is one thing that we're going to need to do to get our Rails application to run. We need to tell the application to listen on all available IPs so that the application is accessible from outside of the container. So I'm going to tell it to listen on 0.0.0.0 so that when I start the application I can access it from a browser. Now, one other thing that I'm going to do is when I drop into a Nanobox console, Nanobox provides me with an IP address that I can use to access my application. However, I want to use a DNS alias, so I don't have to remember that IP each time. So what I can do there is I can go Nanobox add DNS, or no, Nanobox DNS add local rails.dev. And so now that that's been added, what I can do is once this application is done installing all of my gems, I'll start the application and I should be able to view it from a browser. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start the application. Let me do it a different way actually. I'm going to exit out of the console and I'll start it from out here. I don't actually have to be in the console to start it. So I'll go ahead and do nanobox run rails s, and what this will do is exec that command inside of my container for me so that I don't have to drop into the console and do it. And once everything is started up, I will be able to go to my browser and do rails.dev 3000. Okay, so now it's going to start my application for me. And there we go, rails.dev 3000. There we go. I have my running Ruby on Rails application, and I don't even have Rails installed on my local machine. So that's how you can easily get a Ruby on Rails application up and running using Nanobox.